Hello, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Hope you're all doing well. Today, I'm taking over Andrea, so I'm very sorry that you have me instead of him, but he's traveling back to Italy right now because we just had a week's worth of offsites.
Woohoo, Carol!
Hello. All right, so today is March 24th. We have a pretty good office hour today. Before we get started, remember that you can add all your questions down here. You can take a look, theslido.com, and you just enter in that number and you put your questions. We have a poll going on right now in case you need a breakout room, so you can choose, so we know where to put our resources. But you can choose to put either your Cadence or FCL SDK breakout room. Let us know. You can vote for it. And you can also put your questions there. I see there's already some questions. either for Paul today or for the team at Inflow, Richard, if they're here. But let me just introduce the team really, really quick. Hello. We are Flow. At least some of us are here. The Dev Avocados, or Dev Advocates, I can't say it the normal way anymore. It's made up of Kim, Andrea, and Bruno. The community team is me, Carol, and then Trey. You've probably seen us in the Discord answering your questions, and we're also a lot of the times on Twitter making memes. The Cadence team is Josh and Bastian. The Flow Client Library and SDK team is made up of Greg, Chase, James, who's here in spirit, Maxime, Gregor, and Yanes. The developer experience team is made up of Shrindroy, Mac, Pete, and Morton, who are, I think, all here. So if you want to have any questions for them about docs or anything, definitely ask. Solutions engineer Albert, if you need anything related to partnerships, definitely ask him. And then obviously our awesome PMM, David O, is here as well. So what's the agenda today? Okay, it's pretty jam-packed. Right off the bat, we'll have an Inflow Music AMA. They just launched this week. So we're going to find out what they're doing on Flow. And then we're going to be talking about our first community vote. This is very, very exciting. I think I've hinted at this, but Paul here, who's head of core protocol, is going to talk about our first community vote about variable transaction fees. And then we also have the open role for technical writer. I'm going to keep mentioning it, but I mentioned it last week as well. We need technical writers. So if you like Flow and you like writing about Flow, let us know. We want to have you. I guess we'll get into it. Is Richard here from Inflow? I don't see their name. Oh, I do see their name. Just one second. Give me the role to be able to speak. Hey, Richard.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. Will you be presenting today?
Sure, yeah. I thought it was 4:00 because I'm UK time. So I just hopped on early and then you were like, is Richard here? So that's good timing, I guess.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I will happily present. Yeah. I mean, my co-founder, I don't know if my co-founder is going to jump on as well.
Okay, cool. What's his Discord name?
It's Alex at Inflow Music. I'm just sharing him the Discord.
Okay, cool. When he comes in, I'll give him speaker, right, so he can talk. All right.
Here he is. He should be entering.
Nice. Okay, so I'm going to stop presenting and let you present.
Cool. Can everyone see my screen? Well, I assume yes.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So we've actually just launched this site on mainnet now. So basically, this is a social token launchpad for musical artists, built exclusively on Flow. And what this allows you to do, it allows people to come in here, log in via Blockto, create an account, and first of all, just kind of stream music and check music out from various artists. So people can check out videos, they can check out audio. So it's kind of a music streaming platform, but then with this social token thing built into it. So what the social tokens do, these are basically test accounts. We have yet to deploy any mainnet artist accounts. We had some testnet artist accounts, but now we've basically got a little queue of mainnet artist accounts that we'll probably deploy at the beginning of this week. So basically the idea is people can come in here and basically buy and sell social tokens. And what they buy the social tokens with are FUSD. And by buying the token, the artist gets fees. And these tokens are just regular Flow fungible tokens. So the artist gets fees, and as more tokens are bought, there's a bonding curve which we built into our contract. and the bonding curve raises the price to buy incrementally. And when you're buying tokens, you're actually minting, so you're incrementing supply. And then you can also sell tokens as well. So let's say you supported an artist. Let's say you supported an artist early on. Like just as they launched their token, after the bonding curve has increased and more collateral has been deposited into the collateral pool, you could sell your, let's say, 100 tokens and realize profit there. And then also the tokens give you access to token gated content. At the moment, all the content's free to stream, but eventually, you see this Larry required, there will be a token gate. So a certain amount of social tokens are required to view certain content. So for now, we've got this for VOD and audio, but we're actually rolling out a video streaming feature as well. So that's really the core of the app. There's obviously a lot of different things that we're going to be doing. This is just a demo account. I've got no social tokens in here, so it just loads up like this detail. So I mean, we are onboarding artists, and really just beginning this journey. So yeah, we've been building on Flow since I think it was actually November last year that we decided to do it, or more like beginning of December. And now we're here in March, and we've got our contracts audited, and we've got the app working. So I guess just open it up to questions, really. I can tell you a little bit about where we started. I think Alex is here, right? Alex?
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm here. How's it going,
Nice.
guys?
Yeah, good. I just demoed the app a little bit. Alex, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about Inflow?
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? My name is Alexander Yosef. I'm the founder and co-founder and CEO of Inflow. Essentially, yeah, as you've seen, we've built a platform to let artists launch their own cryptocurrency and monetize with their community. Essentially, we built this because we believe that the fans, the supporters, the community members are the biggest economic producers in the music industry. But we really have no upside, no equity, no ownership in any of the artists that we support, right? And so if you think about it, we discover the artists before the labels do. We generate a lot of the music, and then they get picked up and they sign these record deals that is not even favorable to the artist. When really Web3 gives us the ability to fund our artists, fund our favorite artists, and then also have equity and ownership. And so, we're creating a platform first for music, for fans and community members. Yeah, just really, I had this idea because I worked in the music industry and I also worked in crypto as well too. I studied token economics, and so I would see these underground artists blow up, and I was like, why can't I invest in these artists the same way I invest in, these DeFi tokens, right? That don't even exist anymore in 2016. So it's kind of a little bit about how we started it, and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you guys for having us.
Cool. Thank you. If anyone has questions, definitely throw it into the Slido or throw it in the office hours chat.
Yeah, I'll just add a little thing here, which is to actually add FUSD for a user. It's really easy. We're just using ramp, so they click on here and it goes through the ramp flow. So they never actually have to use, leave the app to add FUSD. And also I'm logged in as an admin. But basically if you log in here, you click your account up on the right, there's a little button that shows up here saying create artist account. So for creators and artists, this is how they basically create an artist account. And when they click that create artist account, they go through a form, and then they get an email, and then there's a short verification process. So it's super easy for artists to join. I know Bartek had a question about, could other types of creators have social tokens, even, for example, devs, builders, DAOs. So that's all in the works. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of our thought process here is to create custom interfaces and custom tools per vertical. And so essentially we're doing music first, and then we're going to branch off into sports next, and then content creators, And then, we really haven't even thought about devs having their own social tokens, but that's actually a great idea. Since you guys are highly sought after and you guys have communities of your own as well too. So yeah, that is definitely, our plan to make this available for any type of person. We believe that, in the future, in a couple of years, everybody's going to have a social token just like everybody has a website. And so definitely want to support that vision.
Awesome. So I have the first question in here already from Phil. Hey, Phil. What shape bonding curve do you use and why?
What shape?
Yeah, so we're using a linear bonding curve. Just goes straight and up and to the right. And so essentially, we didn't want to use a J curve just because it's going to lead to crazy pump and dumps and really high volatility. But then we also didn't want to use the ones that tapers off like a S curve. Just because that will also lead to a lot of crazy volatility and then also tapering it off at the end as well too. So the linear just fit well with what we were trying to do just because it's a steady increase, everybody wins, there's not too much volatility, and then it's very predictable as well too. So that's kind of our thought process behind the bonding curves.
Cool. Next question is, can any music creator list on Inflow? Any music? Oh, can any music creator list on Inflow? Sorry.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing, we're going to be opening up for any music creator in a couple months. So we're doing cohort-based launches. So just so we have focus community launches. So 10 artists for the next 2 or 3 months. And then we're going to be opening up for artists that have, their profile. The only requirement really is having your profile filled out, making sure you're actually providing utility for your users. Yeah.
Nice. So the next question is, can you please explain the tokenomics and inflow of each artist having their own token rather than simply minting their music on NFTs that use a smart contract?
Yeah, so the reason why we did, so we're not an NFT platform. I do want to preface that. We believe that, NFTs are a great tool, social tokens are a great tool, and our lane is more so social tokens, and that's the value that we want to provide in terms of token economics. Essentially, how that works is we already talked about the bonding curve. Someone needs to mute themselves real quick. Yeah, so essentially, so each token is not created, is minted, when it's bought, right? And so incrementally, the price starts at 0.000005 or something like that, and then the 10 million token, which is the max supply, is 10 million. The last token is around $500. It could vary a little bit, but around there is a good ballpark number. And so essentially why we use a bonding curve is because artists are not selling a security, because they're not actually selling tokens to the artists or to the fans directly, right? And so now it helps them get over that legal hurdle of okay, they're not selling a security. They don't have to worry about the legal ramifications. And then also, there's a structured fee. And so now what we found with a lot of artists that had social tokens already, they had to go to OTCs to essentially sell the tokens. And it's a very complicated process, right? So with us, an artist gets a fee off every transaction, right? So anytime an artist buys a token or a fan buys a token, the artist gets a transaction fee.
And also just to add on to that fees, we've added the capabilities into our contract to split fees up to 10 wallet addresses. So let's say there's an artist or a DAO or a label that has complex living needs. We can do any combination of splits on those fees up to 10 wallet addresses. So the fees aren't set per social token. We can set them up per the artist's needs. And when people buy social tokens, that FUSD collateral gets held in the collateral pool. And that's where the liquidity is when you sell and want to essentially exit your position. That's where you would realize your FUSD back. So I think we found quite a nice way to solve liquidity, get artists getting fees, and also do it in a way that's kind of minimal from a contract point of view.
Cool. So somebody asked, do you guys consider yourself similar to Rally.io? similarities, differences? Do you know?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, so with Rally, like Rally and Roll, I think we stand out like very drastically just because we actually provide utilities for these tokens on the same platform. With
Yeah.
Rally and Roll, I think the deepest you could go is like access to a Discord channel, which is cool and all, but like there has to be more utilities for communities, right? And so a lot of these platforms, the social token platforms, like miss out on the social aspect, right? And what is social these days? It is content, live streams, interactions, experiences, and so that's where we differentiate ourselves with. And then with Rally, it's really a closed loop system. They're not actually fungible tokens. They're just like kind of token balances on the spreadsheet, and they're I think they have a side chain. With us, they're actually fungible tokens that you can move around from wallet to wallet. They're yours. It's a lot more decentralized as well.
And with the live streaming, we're currently working with Live Peer, so that token holders can get private access to live streams, and that streaming itself is done on a decentralized network. So the cool feature that we're excited to ship pretty soon, and chat, text-based chat.
Cool. Would you be able to share your smart contracts? I'm sure a lot of people would want to check
Of
them
course.
out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we just go.
While you're looking for that, the next question is, how do you see music licensing change in the context of tokenized communities? I think this is a good question.
Man, that is a great question. And that is not even anything that we want to worry about. Really, what we have created is a platform that really is outside of those current systems, right? The reason why we made Inflow the way that it is because if an artist is signed, well, let's say an artist is in a 360 deal and like they can't, the label basically touches everything that they do, they can monetize outside of royalties, copyrights, licensing. And so that game is a messy game in general. And so we want to give musicians an option outside of that, right? And it really goes to like a ethos of, if we're making a Web3 application, why would we even involve any type of Web2 infrastructure? And like, we wanted to be very clear that we weren't touching royalties, we weren't touching any type of revenue stream, any type of legalities in the Web2 world. We wanted to make it completely Web3, right? And so the main thing that artists are monetizing is access to themselves, whether that access to themselves is in the form of a live stream, is in the form of studio sessions, vlogs, unreleased music, interviews. And so if an artist is having trouble with their record label, they can use us as a platform to monetize outside of their music, right? And so we want to be very clear that, we honestly do not care about copyrights and royalties and stuff like that, because that's not what we monetize. We monetize access, and that's what the social tokens give us the ability to do.
Yeah. It's almost like social tokens fall outside of there's no legal classification yet for, how a musician's royalties and copyrights and intellectual property can be tracked within a social token. So that's beneficial for the artists and for Web3. Right. If you just try not to solve the copyright issue and create a new type of asset, and then you let everyone kind of try and figure that out. I think that's the philosophy. I'm just showing this is the contracts deployed to mainnet. So for any cadence people out here, it's made up of two contracts: a social token itself, which is basically just an extension of the fungible token with some additional functions, and then the controller, which essentially is like a bit of a minimal kind of database on chain, which basically just tracks all the artist IDs and where their slope is at, how much collateral they have. So this would be the thing that you query to get information. So here it is.
Nice. I think we're getting to the half-hour mark, so I'll ask maybe two more questions. Do the funds from the token sale go to the artists or to a collateral pool? I think you kind of mentioned this already.
It's both. It's both, really. So the funds go partially to the artist on the fees, and then the remaining funds go to collateral pool. And how much of that is dynamic, and we can set that depending on each artist's needs. And also we wanted it to be something that we could change, so that if we discovered things could be set better or optimized depending on the community, you could update those splits. So they actually go to they go to 2 or more places, more being if you wanted to add additional splits there.
So at the most, there is, no matter what, there is always going to be 80% collateral. So if you put in $100, 80%, $80 is going to be left for you to claim again, right? And so we wanted to be very conscious of that. Like, this is a game to where it makes sense for fans. Your collateral is still there. You don't have to provide liquidity pools or anything like that. Your collateral is already there, and it's you're able to actually realize those gains as well too. So there's no type of liquidity drainage, and actually our 5% that we're taking actually goes to setting the floor of the token, right? And so we'll be buying the tokens with our fees, and so it doesn't go below a certain price, whatever the artist wants us to set, or whatever price that we believe is reasonable. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, this is very cool. I'll take one more question. I think this is a good one. Like, I mean, this is the important one. Who are the first set of artists you're going to have?
So to name a few, I'll do it slow so you guys can look him up. So King Chip, aka Chip the Ripper, is one. He's a prominent artist. He makes music with Kid Cudi and Big Sean and Kanye West as well. So King Chip, and then also Damo Genesis, which is part of Odd Future, with like Tyler the Creator and Earl Sweatshirt and stuff, if you guys are aware. And then we have a couple other, prominent Web2 people, but really what we're going to start off with is onboarding all the Web3 artists, all right? And so these are artists that have NFTs, Stone's organic. We're talking to people like Latasha, essentially people that have NFT communities already would be a perfect fit to launch with, that we're going to launch with, just because, their communities already know how, wallets work and bonding curves and all this stuff is like pretty self-explanatory to those people. And so it's going to be a mixture of like a lot of Web2 artists and all Web3 artists.
Yeah, that leads to a very good question about like, how do you build communities around this space? And we see a lot of people who are trying to like take the Web2 crowd, but I don't think we're really there yet. And it's like you said, they don't have wallets yet. It's going to be a big learning curve for them. The on-ramp's going to be kind of challenging. So, and I think it's going to be great if you have like smaller indie artists who just really are super successful in this Web3 space. It makes for a much more tempting case study for any other future Web2 artists.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if like to the point of like, how do you build communities? Essentially, these are going to be for artists that already have communities, and it's going to be a tool for them to basically inject more excitement and ownership and equity into their community. And so let's say we have a Web2 artist that has never done an NFT before, but they have, 100,000, 300,000 fans. We're willing to bet like at least 5% of those fans have MetaMask or used NFTs before. So we think there's still opportunity with those artists as well too. So yeah, kind of our thought process there.
And even for the people that don't have MetaMask, the advantage with Flow and also working with Blockto is that the people that don't want custodial, that don't care about their private keys, like it's basically a Web2 flow, like a login flow. They just verify their email and they just top up in USD. So, that makes it really easy to capture a bigger user base, we think. So that's also really exciting. And then also I just wanted to just add as well that we are like really interested in exploring ways that we can lock up liquidity of these social tokens and potentially reward users via various staking mechanisms. And, just as a general shout out to the community, like if we are, if people have got ideas or want to collaborate on the Cadence side, on the Flow side, there's loads of stuff that we kind of want to explore. So just hit me up directly or Alex. Yeah.
Nice. There's still some questions, so maybe we'll save them for the end. But thank you so much. This is a super interesting project. Where can we? I'm sure you have a bunch of socials. Do you wanna throw them out here for us?
Sure.
Yes. On Twitter, we are inflow_music. On Instagram, we are inflow.music. And feel free to hop on the platform inflowmusic.io, and then find us on Discord as well too. We'll include our Discord link.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much to the both of you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Nice. All right. So up next, we have Paul, our very own Paul. This has been long awaited. Paul, do you want to jump in and tell us what's coming in the next couple of weeks?
Our very own Paul.
Our own Paul.
Here, I'm actually just going to share my screen, but I'm just going to share this document that we're also going to post in the channel. So if you just want to look at it, that's fine as well. So yeah, this is a good one. So this is a bit of more of a nerdy topic, we'll say, for everybody, if you're there. And if there's questions, please just jump in and ask, because I'd rather kind of get to the nuts and bolts of this than talk on about specifics people aren't interested in. But the high level here is that for a long time, we've been working toward enabling variable transaction fees for Flow. There's been a flip. It's this flip 660 available on that link there that has been available since, I believe, November of last year. It details a way of extracting transaction fees that is that takes into account the cost of the execution of a transaction for the actual blockchain itself, and also for the cost of getting that transaction into the blockchain. And it also includes this kind of surge factor, basically a multiplier that could be applied if things are busy in order to make sure that, resources are used appropriately. The important piece of this is that, as Bastian posted about a month and a half ago, we have been looking toward this path to stable cadence. Stable cadence is a large effort where what we want is to have the cadence programming language be at a place where it is not going to be introducing a lot of backwards incompatible changes. But there's, on the way to that, we also need to release a version of Cadence, which we're calling Secure Cadence. Really, it's a version of Cadence where we're confident that permissionless smart contract deployment can work on that in the platform without affecting the total network. And as soon as you open up permissionless smart contract deployment, you definitely need some way that fees can take into account the weight of transactions. If everybody is releasing contracts that use, as literally as much execution time as they're given, then that's going to impact the network more than if people are just doing, an average kind of contract. So because of that, we have been pushing forward to get this implemented. And the big news is that just this week, the code here for this Flip 660 was actually merged, and it is being prepared for the next spork, which is planned for April 6th. The way that this is going to work is that as of April 6th, the code will be available, but the transaction fee metering will not change. It will not change immediately. What's going to happen is there will be a vote, a community vote that's going to happen just after the April 6th spork, where we are going to do a vote on the exact structure of the fees, and that's going to be described here in Flip 753. There's been there was some feedback from some data analysts on that, and we're kind of cleaning up the numbers on that specifically. But regardless of whether or not of how that vote goes and what the exact fees are, we do need dApps to be aware, tools to be aware, and wallets to be aware that they're going to need to begin to handle transaction fees that aren't just a static amount. This isn't something that we think is going to impact users a lot to start, because Blockdo, Dapper Wallet, the current ways of interacting with and getting a lot of the resources on Flow do sponsor transaction fees, and so although the transaction fees will be variable now, they won't be a lot of impact to the user for the most part. But if you are somebody that wrote a DApp and you have optimized your contracts or your UI to use a very specific amount of a very specific gas limit when doing a call, your UI may no longer work unless you adjust that. So we're trying to get out ahead of this one and saying that we're going to be, releasing this on the 6th. Around the 6th, we will be enabling the feature on testnet. And it's also, we're cleaning it up in the simulator as well so that developers can test out this feature locally and you can get an idea of what your transactions will cost on mainnet. There's some recommendations in this document. There's a FAQ. In short, if you don't know, set your maximum value to the highest. And there's some other details here. I'll be updating this post as we get more details or questions. And yeah, so there's and look at, I just found an issue, just found a bug in my document. I'll have to fix that. So there's quite a lot of detail here in these two flips, Flip 660 and Flip 753. As for the actual vote, we will we'll have a preview of the proposal for that sometime next week, which will include all the final numbers that look like they're going to lead to the best outcomes. And then I'll talk about that more next week of the actual proposal. But I'd love to hear just any questions, feedback about the implementation of this. And if you have any questions about how this impacts your specific tool or DApp or wallet, you can ask here or message me or reach out to anybody on DevX.
Nice. We have some questions already.
Sweet.
Do we?
Paul, maybe it's worth mentioning that overall we think people are going to end up spending less on fees.
Yeah. Very good point, Albert. So one of the things that in terms of transaction fees for Flow that we're trying to do is to have it be that when this feature is enabled, the average transaction, or let me put it this way. So on the way transaction execution effort is being measured, it depends upon the actual actions that your contract takes, whether this be reading data, writing data, looping over a bunch of data, and doing some computation. And if you look at the distribution or the way that those transactions happen on Flow specifically, but this also goes to other blockchain networks, is that you often have a lot of transactions which do somewhat basic things. These are transfers, basic NFT operations, that sort of thing. And then you have some which are doing a lot of work. And the way that we're structuring the fees here is that the average transactions, the ones that are not doing that much, the ones that are doing, like what most transactions are expected to do, should cost less than our current 0.001 static transaction fee. And on the flip side of that is that transactions that are doing significantly more will be charged more. So we're actually not expecting for most users this to have an impactful change on the amount of fees that are actually collected for their transactions, but it's a mitigation against really expensive transactions from taking over the network overall. It's a good point, Albert. And then I'll also point out that so to start, there's the fees are broken down into this two parts. There's execution effort and inclusion effort, and really the only thing that's going to be adjusted in the first vote is the execution effort. So the inclusion effort will still be fixed. The surge factor will be hard-coded to 1, or set in the settings to 1. And so we'll begin just by varying how the execution effort changes. So this is a starting point. And what we're really hoping is that we can get a lot of feedback from people that are building, seeing how this works, and then we'll have future votes and future flips to adjust these fees over time in order to kind of make everything work smoothly for everybody.
I think Richard had a question. If you want to go ahead, Richard.
Hey, yeah, I wondered if one were to set these transaction optimizations, would they be doing it with an FCL?
Yes, so FCL allows you to pass in the gas limit. I believe the way that it happens right now is if you don't pass it in, it defaults to a low value like 10, which is basically enough to do a transfer or some small amount of actions. So from your DApp perspective, you are going to want to set the gas limit on a transaction that goes through to an amount that's appropriate for the new execution effort calculation that happens. You'll be able to find out what that value is by looking at, there's a new event that will be emitted from a contract at the end of a transaction execution. It's called fees deducted, that you'll be able to look at to see your execution effort on the simulator and testnet. And again, since today, very few wallets are passing this fee on to users. It's somewhat safe if you just need to make sure that your app works today to set your gas limit to 9999. This is the maximum value. And the contracts will not use all of that. They'll only take how much actual effort was used. But this would be like your higher bound for what your cost will be. And the same goes for like the Flow Go SDK there, where there's a field where you can actually set the gas limit per transaction. If your transaction does go over that amount, it will fail.
Cool. I'm just going to start asking you questions from our Slido. First one is, what will be the cost of standard minting transaction, roughly?
The rough cost of a standard minting transaction should be almost exactly the same as it is now. We have some analysis that's happening. In fact, you can go look at the 753 flip to kind of go in detail about that. But we're trying to clean that up a little so we can give easier answers to that. But it should be around what it is now per token.
Cool. Why is the default the max? Isn't that going to be problematic if someone uses the SDK and doesn't realize this is an effect?
The default is not the max. Oh, in the Flow Go SDK, the default is the max because people that are using the Flow Go SDK and in the way that the thing has been kind of used so far is mostly as tools. And so those tools, it's like, we're just going to pay whatever it costs to have this transaction go through. But remember this gas limit is like, it's basically saying, hey, I will take whatever the cost is to execute the largest transaction I can. And that's actually sort of fine. It's not setting the maximum amount that you will pay because the gas cost, the amount that you will pay per unit of execution effort, is not variable still currently. Does that make sense? And this is also why for FCL, which is more of a client library, it does default to a low number, which basically means that either the dApp developer actually comes up with a good estimate for how much their transaction will cost, or it'll be so low that only very basic things would actually succeed.
Cool. Remember, anyone, if you want to jump in and ask a question, you can just make sure to push to talk and then jump in. Nice.
Yeah, we can jam. There's one other thing to note here, which is that for people that are familiar with Ethereum, they have ETH_estimate gas, which is a function where you can pass in a transaction and it will estimate the amount of gas that your transaction will use. That is not something that the current architecture here supports. The architecture supports it. The implementation does not yet have that. And it is something that we're looking at adding. But if you do want to find out what your actual transaction execution effort is, you should still use the methodology in the documentation, which is to run that transaction on testnet or the simulator and sort of understand what your limits are.
Sweet. I don't know if this is okay. Aren't fees going to be free on Flow? I haven't paid anything yet when I use Blockto.
So that is actually related to what Blockto is doing. So Flow is unique in terms of other layer one chains, where an account can have a signer, somebody that needs to approve transactions. It can actually have multiple signers, but it can also have a payer that is separate from it. And currently, Blockto, when they actually interact with transactions, when you interact with transactions, they are being the payer of those transactions. So the Blockto themselves is paying that transaction fee, but you're approving it. That interaction doesn't need to go that way, and non-custodial wallets may have you as a user pay that transaction. But even in that case, a DApp specifically could be the sponsor of a transaction. So transactions on Flow are not free. They do actually cost something. However, currently the custodial wallets will sponsor those because it creates a better UX and the fees are not particularly high. This is not something that you see working particularly well on Ethereum or other chains because they don't actually have a good model for how to split out the transaction payer from the transaction approver at the protocol level. And that's, I would say, a differentiator for us in terms of user experience. So I think it's great that you've been using this and you've never had to worry about a transaction fee yet.
Sweet.
Is that too nerdy of an answer? That's
No, that's fine. We're all nerdy here.
Yeah.
How accurate will testnet gas? Oops, sorry. I'll bring it up. How accurate will testnet gas usage be to mainnet usage?
So this is the way that the way that execution effort was the word we're trying to use, not gas, is calculated is based upon the actual operations of your contract. So if your contract does basically the same thing all the time, no matter what the state that's stored on chain is, then it will be accurate. The place where things can go wrong is if your contract does a variable amount of things based upon some on-chain state. So perhaps you store, a list of records and you iterate over those records. And as more and more records get added to that list, the cost of your transaction would go up. In that case, then, if your testnet data and your mainnet data looked different, then you would get different results. So that's something that you just sort of need to understand. And in terms of building on a blockchain, doing things like looping through unbounded sets of data is sort of a no-no anyway. So that's something that you're going to need to understand. But if what you're doing is something that's more bounded, then you should be able to get the same accurate number off of testnet and mainnet, assuming that the data that you're operating with is similar.
Nice. Dean says that's very diplomatically stated. What did you call gas fees again?
Execution effort. The reason that we're doing that is because we're actually trying to conceptually split up something that people have combined more or less because of Ethereum, which is the amount of money that it takes to have the computers actually execute the code of the transaction and verify it, the cost that it takes for the whole network just to consider your transaction. So say you're a spammer and you just want to throw a bunch of transactions in, but they don't cost very much to execute, then we'd like to be able to have the system manage that separately. And so this inclusion fee occurs there. And then also storage fees. So on Flow, you can there's a separate fee for storage fees, whereas in Ethereum and Ethereum derivatives, that is kind of just taken into account by the amount of gas that it costs to write data once. So you see a different distribution of fees if you just combine them all into this gas fees term than what Flow is actually giving you.
Cool. By the way, I just wanted to mention that there are several people who asked for both a Cadence and an FCL breakout room. So if you guys are still, there are a couple of questions left, so we can continue asking them here. And then there were some questions for, I think, the Inflow team. But if you guys want to go in there and ask your questions in there, please go ahead. I think there's nobody there yet. Okay. But you can also stick around after the office hours. Even though we're not live, you can definitely go in there and have discussions with the team. But do you get back the data of gas usage of the transaction if you get the gas limit to 0, even though it fails? Also, is gas limit 0 valid? What is the lowest?
Gas limit is 0 is not valid. That would always fail. I actually don't know the answer if it will be accepted and fail or if it will just not be accepted. But the lowest then would be 1, which would mean that your transaction included one function call or loop that didn't read or write any data. So that's more or less going to be not a very useful contract. So if you have a contract where people do a transaction that just returns a static value, they shouldn't be paying for that, and it's not going to do much. The real key thing here with these is that a few operations are going to change from being the way the execution effort is calculated right now. It's that every time a function is called or a loop iteration happens, we increase this execution effort counter. The change, the biggest piece of the change is that although that still occurs, we're also going to increase the execution effort counter by how many bytes your transaction has read or written on chain. There's a couple of other items in there that change, which are detailed in the flip, but we're trying to assign effort to the transactions based upon the amount of data that you're operating with, not just the fact that you operated with any data at all.
So, Paul, it just sounds like the spirit of that question is, can I determine how much a transaction will cost on mainnet without actually paying? And it sounds like the answer kind of is no, you need to use testnet for that. And again, make sure you have the same amount of data so you're comparing apples to apples.
Currently, the idea is that we'll add an estimate execution effort call at some point that will allow you to do that. But even if you have that, there's always this problem where the data on chain can move out from under you, can change because of another user's transaction. So depending upon your dApp, that's not reliable anyway. But yes, currently test that transaction and you will be able to see the amount by looking at this fees deducted. And I will check whether or not a fee of 0 would work and you'd still get fee deducted. I'm pretty sure it just won't. I'm pretty sure it'll be rejected at the execution layer.
Paul, I can jump in there.
Yeah.
If you set your gas limit to low, like 0 or 1, I'm honestly not sure if 0 is a valid gas limit anyway. I think 1 is though. Your transaction will most likely fail unless you're really just doing one statement or have an empty transaction. And when it fails, you will be charged as if you have used 1 unit of execution effort. And you won't get, your transaction will stop exactly as you hit that 1 unit of execution effort.
So the fees deducted would actually say the amount that was actually deducted, and thus it would say 1.
Yeah.
Got it.
Nice. One more question. I have a transaction that takes about 1,000 computing costs. Is that considered above average?
Giannis, do you know the answer to that question off the top of your head right now?
That is very difficult to tell. So what we measure right now is, like Paul said, every loop or function call costs 1 unit of computation or execution effort. From the recent data that we have, that's for pure loops and function calls, it's actually going to be less. So if you had an empty for loop that does 1,000 times nothing, it would actually cost less. However, if you had a loop call that, for instance, created an account for every loop, that would cost significantly more. So it kind of depends on what you're doing on those 1,000 computation cost transaction.
Cool. Perfect. So there are no more questions about this, but I think, Paul, we're going to have another. Do we need another community discussion? Maybe I'll have a more open discussion and not during office hours before our first vote on this. When's the vote again? Is it still slated for April 1st?
We definitely should do an open call. I think that's a great idea before it. At this point, we're looking at doing this vote just after the spork on April 8th.
Okay, perfect. So in 2 weeks. So maybe next week we're going to set another call. So if you're interested, I'll set up another event, and it'll be an open event, and anyone can jump in and talk. I know that this format's kind of difficult for us to have like a discussion. But the next step, so I'll set up a call for next week, and anyone can join. The idea is that we'll get feedback before we go to that first vote. And actually, all your questions were really useful for this, right?
Yeah, and I'll say at that point, we'll have the proposal cleaned up in a clear way so people can understand how the fees work. So that'll be a better time to talk about specifics of how, maybe specific sorts of transactions will be costed and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to prime it today so that you guys can start thinking about how this applies to your particular use case and stuff like that, so you can come and ask us then. And then we'll have another Twitter space, actually, a more public one. Somebody brought up this idea that, Twitter spaces are a great place where people have more thought leadership conversations, but it was like, why don't we start having conversations about tokenomics in public? So we'll have another Twitter space. Lane will join us. Paul and Lane will have a discussion about tokenomics, which is invariably about variable transaction fees, sometime in the next 2 weeks. And I think it'll be kind of cool. Anyone can join. I think it'd be good to have non-technical people join as well. And yeah, so keep those dates in mind. I will share everything, no stress. And then look out for the events. You can join, and then we're going to have our first community vote. Very exciting. You want to add anything, Paul?
Nope. Looking forward to talking tokenomics with everybody, though.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I have one more question unrelated to this, but Skimming Derby asked, how can I buy Flow on a DEX? None of the central X's exchanges that operate in my state offer Flow. I tried Uniswap, but Flow is not listed. What is the contract address?
Okay. So there, I actually have this open. Can I post this somewhere, or did this get posted? I'm going to post this in the office hours chat here. So if you go to this list, this is the Uniswap pool with wrapped flow. And if you go and you click and you go to trade, Uniswap will actually ask you to add it here. And this is the correct token address. Okay,
sweet. Perfect. I think that wraps it up for today. Okay, so it looks like Josh and everyone and Greg are in the Cadence. So if you guys want to have a chat with Greg and you have Cadence questions, definitely go in there. They're in there to help you right now. And some of our community reps are there as well. So go ahead. And thanks everyone for joining. I think that was all the questions for today. Lots of really good discussion. And thanks. I hope I was okay compared to Andrea. And yeah, next week we'll have more fun content for you. Watch out for the events and hope you join us for the Twitter space to do tokenomics. And that's it for now. Thanks everyone. We're going to just end early, I guess. Have a good one.
You're awesome. Thank you. Everyone have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Hashtag Team Carol.
Bye.
I'm gonna make that a thing. I'll give people hashtag Team Andrea, hashtag Team Carol.
Nope.
Hashtag Team Carol. I'm Team Carol today.
Oh, yay.
searching for a longer day. People feeling like the light has just come. We must never stop the way. Birds chirping and I hear my name. Grass is green, it's so alive. Life is happy, but it's so insane. We must merely make a strive. Savannah.